Hello, everyone. Today is the day I tell my story, and I'm really excited about telling it. I've decided to go freestyle on this. I haven't prepared for it or anything. I'm just going to see what comes. I'll try to keep it as short as possible, but I think it's important to start at the beginning. Where if I look at my childhood, I was always the what if person, and what I mean by that is there was this fear of what if something went wrong. So if my parents were coming home later than I expected, what if there was an accident? If I was on the sports field, what if I missed the shot? If I was studying for an exam later on, what if that particular question that I didn't study came up, and what if it was highly weighted? It was what if. There was this scarcity mindset, and I remember having it my entire life. I mean, when I finished school, I got a tongue-in-cheek award saying Looking on the Bright Side award, which was being sarcastic because I clearly didn't do that. The one positive was I did, because I was panicking all the time, I did pretty well at school. So I got into chiropractic school and I studied chiropractic. I came out and I decided to go over to the UK. I ended up in a practice where I would work under a mentor. And I thought to myself, wow, this could be pretty easy for me. I'll work with this guy for a while. I didn't take it too seriously, maybe have a bit of a holiday, some traveling, and then 6 months later I'll come back down to South Africa. A little while later, the mentor left. And suddenly I was there on my own. I didn't own the practice. There was a practice owner, but he wasn't a chiropractor himself. And I went up to him and I said, well, listen, we better find somebody to help me with this. So, I'm not ready to run a practice. And he said, no, you are. I will put you in touch with mentors, with coaches, whatever it is that you need. I believe that you can take this practice forward. So after a lot of discussion and a lot of fear, I decided, okay, let's do this. So long story short, I traveled around a lot. I was coached and trained by some amazing people. And the practice started to grow. And I mean, at one point, it was an ultra successful practice, one of the busiest probably in the UK at that stage. And I remember a day particularly when I didn't work on Fridays. So on Fridays was my shopping day. So I was like that scene in Pretty Woman, walking down in between the stores with all my bags of clothes. I was making good money. I was able to travel. I had externally everything that I thought I would need, but I had this feeling of, is this it? I didn't have that feeling I thought I would have. That feeling of contentment, of happiness, excitement, fulfillment. I didn't have it. I was still dragging myself out of bed on a Monday. I was going into work, waiting for the weekend. Then the weekend would come. I'd have some expectations for that weekend. I'd do cool stuff, but then I found at the weekend I didn't feel a hell of a lot better. And this went on for a while until one day I thought, okay, maybe it's my environment. Maybe it's because I'm in this country. The weather's not so great here. I don't own the practice that I'm in. Maybe it's because I'm not in full control of my destiny. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go back home. So I left this thriving practice. I just left it there. I remember my patient saying to me, are you mad? How can you leave this thing that you've created and go back? And I just said, no, something is telling me to go back. So I came back to South Africa. I moved to Cape Town, and I started my own practice. In the interim, I got married, and the practice was building quite nicely. It was going quite well. We had our first child, and then a little while later we had our second child. And the irony of this is I got to a point where I said, okay, things are going really well, but now, second child, we just had moved into a new house, and I was like, now it's time to actually take this to another level. I want to have bigger impact. It's now time for me to take it to the next level. And literally, I think it was the same day or the next day, I get a phone call from my accountant. And she says, I want to come and see you. And I thought, that's quite weird that my accountant wants to see me. Usually we converse via email or telephone. And she comes in and she sits down and she says, well, first of all, congratulations. Your practice is doing very well. In fact, way better than we anticipated. So I said, oh, okay, well, thank you. That's, I suppose, good news. And she said, but the issue is we found something in your accounting in that when we've been working out what you owe from a tax point of view, there's been a whole portion of your income that's been left out in the calculations. And this has happened for about the last year. So I said, well, what does that mean? So she says, well, it means that your tax liability, what you're going to be owing at your next payment and the payment after that, is significantly higher than we anticipated or what you've been preparing for. So I said, how much different? And then when she told me the figure, my heart just dropped, because that was all the savings I currently had. It would have drained all of that. It would have pushed even the business overdraft back down towards the limit. And I sat there, how could this happen? But she wasn't finished. She said, by the way, also because of this, you haven't been putting enough aside every single month, so we need to catch up now. And in order to catch up, you're going to have to put X amount of money on top aside every single month so that you have enough to pay the next sum and the next sum and the next sum. And suddenly, the amount of money I had to put aside was just extraordinary to catch up. So in 24 hours, I went from being pretty financially secure and comfortable and things were going pretty well to complete emergency mode. I mean, it was panic, anxiety. That mindset I had, that scarcity mindset, just went through the roof. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't talking to my wife really about it in detail because I was protecting her from it. I thought, I'm the man, I'm going to take this on, I'm going to protect her. Hey Natalie. This process went on for, I'd say after about 6 months, it really got to a head. Marriage was taking strain. I wasn't present with my children because it was just anxiety. How are we going to get through this? How are we going to get through this? How are we going to get through this? When I was really at rock bottom, I walked past my bookcase. Now, self-development's always been an interest of mine. And in England, I had bookshelves of this stuff. Everything from the Eckhart Tolles to the Deepak Chopras to the John DeMartinis. I had read hundreds and hundreds of books. And it was all this. I enjoyed them, but it didn't actually change what I did the next day. I had an idea of all these things and I enjoyed reading it, but it didn't really make a change. And then one day when I was really at a low point, I walked past the bookcase and I said, I'm gonna try this again. I'm actually gonna start grabbing these books and I'm gonna start reading it. And I think the first one I actually picked out was The Secret, on the law of attraction. And I'd read it before. I've watched the DVD. I really enjoyed it, so I paged through it, and it actually made me feel a bit better. It just gave me a bit of relief from this tension that I was feeling on, but it didn't change my mindset at all. But then somebody said something which made me think. He spoke about how when he read a book, he didn't just read a book, he studied it. Once he found something that had wisdom in it, he studied it as if he was studying for an exam. And I thought, wow, maybe that's the thing. Maybe I've just been glancing over these concepts. Maybe I'm going to study this stuff. So I grabbed a couple of books and I started studying them, not just reading them, pen, paper, studying them. And I went through many different directions and to speed up the story a bit, got to a point where I was on the Tony Robbins kind of thing and watching a lot of his stuff and going through some of his processes. I went through his morning routine every morning. And then the one day in my morning routine, I was in a state of meditation, and this thing flashed in my head and it said, Robbie, your purpose is to help people to stop suffering and actually create a fulfilling life, to stop people from going through how you are feeling now. And I had a real emotional kind of reaction when I said that to myself. And then another thought flashed in my mind and it said, but you need an inspired partnership. You need to work with somebody that can help you, mentor you, somebody that maybe got a similar background to you, but a bit further down the line, because you can't do this on your own anymore. You need some help. And so a couple of days went by, and literally the next week, a patient walks into my practice. His name is Michael, and I knew he was German. I knew he was an entrepreneur, but not much else. And he lies down, and we start talking, and he talks about his background, and he says, he's had multiple businesses, and his energy was just different to anybody I'd ever met. And he had multiple businesses, but his recent one, which he's in the process of selling, is a healthcare clinic, and it helps people change their lifestyle so that they can overcome chronic illness. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. That's basically what's my background's been. I've always tried to help people doing that, so that's a coincidence. And then through conversation, I mentioned the name Tony Robbins, and he says to me, oh, do you like Tony Robbins? I said, well, funny you should say that. The last few weeks I've really been engrossed in his work. So he says, well, I've been studying Tony Robbins for years. I've been coached by Tony Robbins. I've been coached by his son. I've been all over the world to his seminars. Tony Robbins is a big mentor of mine. And I thought to myself, whoa, this is getting weird. So he owns a clinic for chronic illness, and now he's been mentored by Tony Robbins, and he's got this weird kind of different energy about him. So I say, okay, I want to go to lunch to you. So we go to lunch. We sit down, and within 5 minutes, I can tell this guy is functioning at a completely different level, even compared to the people I'd worked with in the UK. He is at a completely different level. He goes through his history and what he's done and the challenges he's faced. And at the end of it, I say to him, I don't care what it takes. I want to work with you. I want to be coached by you. And he says, oh, you know what? I'm not working this year. I've taken the year off, so I've got time. And if you want to do it, if you're willing to dedicate to it and you're willing to put in the time, I will push you to your absolute limits. But if you're willing to do that, I'll coach you. So I say, fantastic. And he says, oh, and this is my fee. And he tells me the fee. And I just recovered from this issue with the catching up with the tax. And I just lifted my head above water. It was probably 2 months into feeling slightly better about this stuff. And he slaps me with his fee, which to me was a lot of money. Now I'm like, oh my goodness, not only am I going to have to dedicate so much time and effort into this, it's going to financially put me down in that stress response again. So I go home and I talk to my wife about it, and her first thing is exactly what our mind was. Are you mad? We've just come out of this. How can we go back into this cauldron of stress again? But then a day or two later, she comes up to me and she says, look, this is your dream. I can see it. I can see a change in you already. We must do this, whatever it takes. So I say, let's do this, and we start. And no, I couldn't do a swap. I would have to see him 3 times a day for 3 months to do a swap. So we start. Now, within the first... Now, I'm thinking of strategy. He's going to come in and say, do this strategy and do that strategy. And he walks in, and the first kind of 3 or 4 or 5 sessions, it's all unconscious conditioning, reconditioning the mind, reconditioning the mind. What he did initially, or what we did, was moved my unconscious mind out of this chronic state of scarcity towards an abundant mind state. That was number 1. Number 2, we found limiting beliefs that I had that was holding me back, and we reprogrammed them and took them out. Massive. After that, state conditioning. So I built up my emotional resilience. So this was practical. It wasn't just pie in the sky, oh, you should be grateful, you should do this, you should do that. It was a technique of you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. Everything started to change. So I started waking up whistling. I was completely joyful throughout. My marriage went like this in a matter of days. No marriage counseling, anything like that. Complete transformation in marriage. Relationship with children went through the roof. I was present all the time, and all these opportunities started happening. Without me, I was putting in more hours, but I was feeling way more relaxed, way more chilled. People started noticing it. Friends started noticing it. This is only after about 4 weeks. Then the crazy stuff started happening. So I tell him what my vision is, and with him we got to a really clear vision. And my vision was to help people to develop the mindset to create a really fulfilling life. And I thought doing it online is the way to go, because you can impact so many more people like that. So now I must go research some online people that know what they're doing. The first guy I came across was a guy called Tai Lopez. Now, he's big in the online space, a lot of education around business and money and things like that. But I was just following him to see how he did things. So he's a big name. So Tai Lopez, number 1. Then Michael said to me, no, you've got to read a guy called Russell Brunson. He's done something called ClickFunnels, which is massive in the online space. And typical Michael style, get the book tomorrow, have it read in the next 4 days. I'll see you then. So, okay, got his book, read it. And at the time, I was thinking to myself, fulfillment. I mean, do people even care about that? It's quite niche. There's probably only a small subset of people that care about feeling this is incorrect by the way, care about feeling like really fulfilled and joyful every single day while they're building the life of their dreams. So I had some issues with that. But then I read in the front of the book about this guy called Jacob who developed a big online empire teaching people how to jump high up. So teaching people how to dunk a basketball. And he had this huge empire around it. And I thought to myself, wow, if this guy can find a niche like that and create something amazing, surely I will find my niche, my people that are interested in what I'm interested in. So I'm reading about this. About a week goes by. I'm at the practice and the guy walks in. He's American. And he sits down and I say, hey, how you doing? I start making some small talk. And I say, so what do you do for a living? Because he's written trainer in his form. So he says, I teach people how to jump higher. So I stop and I put the pen down and I say, do you know Russell Brunson? He says, yeah, he's a good friend of mine. How do you know that? So I said, are you Jacob Hiller? So he says, yes, I am. So I'm like, I can't believe this. I've been reading about you for about the past 2 weeks. He goes, hi, isn't that funny? He says, I'm living in South Africa now. I've been here for 2 years. I just walked past your practice, saw the name, and I thought I'd pop in. And I'm like, well, okay. So next, Jacob, you and me are going to lunch. So we go to lunch, we get on really well, we start talking about all these things, a couple of opportunities come up, and he starts giving me advice on certain things. And the story carries on, and I don't have time to go through it, but just opportunity, 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 and it gets worse. So what I didn't realize is on the same day I had seen a couple in the practice, American guy and a British woman. And when I spoke to them, I was aware they were into an online business. I think she said she had an online clothing business. And I was seeing Jacob, talking to him pretty regularly, and then I was seeing these two, but didn't think much of it until one day I said, listen, how did you get into online clothing sales? And she said, well, we used to work with a guy and we helped him kind of with his online marketing. So I said, oh, what's the guy's name? And she says, Ty Lopez. So she said, he's actually best man at my wedding in a few months. And I just thought, oh my goodness. This all happened in a matter of weeks. And so the journey continues. But what basically the epiphany I had from this is that your external environment doesn't control how you feel inside. What you've got to do is work on how you feel inside, and then your external environment follows that. And this is what I was doing, is instead of just listening to philosophy or anything like that, I had learned a sequence of things to train the unconscious mind to view things in a certain way. And not only was I happier and more productive and my marriage got better and the rest of it, but opportunities actually started coming out of thin air. And like I say, the journey's still continuing, so I'll let you know. But that is my backstory, maybe short version, long version. And I'll keep you informed as we go along. But thanks. I'll see some old friends saying hello. And I'll see you tomorrow because I'm going to be posting stuff. I've committed to posting something every day, so I better think of something to say. But cheers, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.